Hello everyone, welcome back to Tea Time. Welcome to the match review for the Champions League quarterfinal clash between Manchester City and Bayern Munich. Manchester City 3, Bayern Munich 0. Now, before I get into this match review, make sure that you check out the new announcement video on the channel made by Aviv. Make sure you check out the podcast coming soon, the first podcast of season 3. But let's talk about this game, because we mentioned this game in the podcast a little bit and I said that I would talk about it in this video, and here we are. What an enthralling, unbelievable, spectacular, all these synonyms for amazing. Amazing game, high quality, absolutely remarkable. I got ready for the game and I was sitting there and I was like, you know what, I want to be astonished. I want it to be mouth-watering. I want my jaw to be dropped, and it was hanging low. Man City were absolutely magnificent on both ends of the field, offense and defense. Bayern Munich, while some people will completely write them off and say that they were shocking, they gave it a go. They gave it a crack. The first 25, 30, 35 minutes, Man City did look like they had the upper hand, but not by a landslide, not by a 3-0 victory. At least. Now, in today's video, I want to talk about specific players that really shone. I mean, on Manchester City's side, every single player on that pitch, maybe except for Ederson. Ederson had an okay game, but everyone other than him had a magnificent game. I mean, this is not a flaw or fault of Ederson. He didn't have much to do, but because of Manchester City's all-round excellence, you can pick any single player from outfield and talk about them for 3, 4, 5 minutes. That's how well-drilled and machine-like Manchester City are. Everyone knows their role, they're able to play their role perfectly and play their role to bring others into the game, bring the best out of themselves and bring the best out of their teammates. And that's why Manchester City are quite possibly the best team in Europe and look like the front runners, not only for the Premier League in their title race with Arsenal, but for the Champions League. Let's talk about Bayern a little bit. They did struggle. They were off it. They were a little bit shaky. I mean, again, they did give it a go. You can see what Thomas Tuchel was going for with his lineup. They didn't go for a clear number 10 or even, a clear number 10, but mainly no clear number 9. You had very similar players in Gnabry, Sane and Coman as their front three, who all want to get on the ball, dribble past, make zippy passes, zigzag through opponents. Now, I can understand why you'd want that against a Manchester City who maybe have a bit of a taller, maybe more slow backline. You know, Ruben Dias, Akanji, John Stones, Ake. They're not the most quick guys. They're not, your Kyle Walkers. However, I don't think that this really came to fruition. I mean, Gnabry barely got a touch all game. I didn't even notice that he was on the pitch for most of the time. Sane was okay. He really put it all out there, but his selfishness in some key moments, I thought, maybe gave Man City the defensive edge. I mean, Man City's defense was flawless, to be honest. So regardless of if you play Thomas Muller, if you play Sadio Mane instead of Gnabry or Coman or Sane, it probably wouldn't have done much, but maybe it would have. Bayern Munich attempted 12 crosses into the box, completing 3 of them. At 25%, that's not awful, but once again, if you are going to complete 25% of your crosses, you're going to want a tall or a striker that can get to those headers to punish Manchester City's defense. But given Gnabry starting up front, I don't think he's going to necessarily do that. So maybe starting someone who wants the ball not just to feet, maybe a little bit in behind, like Sadio Mane, maybe that could have helped Bayern Munich on the night. But I'm not going to be too hard on Bayern Munich. Manchester City were all around unbelievable. It's bizarre. Honestly, a little bit bizarre how every single player on that pitch, you could argue, is the best in the world at their position. Rodri, Ruben Dias, Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva. We'll talk more about Bernardo Silva because he's not your conventional right winger or central midfielder or anything. He's unconventional, and that's what makes him So brilliant. Manchester City are now unbeaten in their last 25 home Champions League games. Obviously, their home games at the Etihad, they've won 23 and drawn 2 out of the last 25. That is astonishing, and it is now the longest unbeaten home run by any Premier League side in the UCL. So you can see that Pep Guardiola has really drilled down the performances at home. Let's talk about some key players. Now, you could give man of the match to many City players. For me, there's 2 clear front runners. But just falling off in second place for me is Rodri. The Spanish CDM was absolutely everywhere. He made 17 recoveries. Now, I know a lot of the time in these videos I mention stats or random numbers and they could be irrelevant to you, or you could be like, well, what does that really mean? 17 recoveries by Rodri last night against Bayern Munich. That is the most by a Manchester City player in a single UEFA Champions League match. No Man City player has recovered the ball that many times ever in their UCL history. That is astonishing. Rodri also made 3 out of 3 successful dribbles and passed the ball into the final third 6 times, which highlighted that he's not only confident in the defensive aspects of the game, but also moving that ball forward, which is so important for a Manchester City side that loves to play 1-2s and tactical and technical football in the opposing half. To further highlight his defensive brilliance, he won 8 out of 10 ground duels and made 3 out of 4 tackles. Rodri's role was also a little bit different to normal. We know that he is completely capable of playing that single pivot in Manchester City's midfield, but today, John Stones playing a little bit more further forward as kind of a right CDM allowed Rodri that opportunity to glide forward. And that is perfectly seen by his goal, where he was so far up that he could beat, I believe it was Musiala, take one touch around Musiala, shoot a perfect left foot shot with his left foot, and curl it past Sommer. So it's interesting. Maybe Pep wanted to play the double pivot for a little bit more defensive coverage against a stronger side in Bayern Munich, or he just wanted to give Rodri that flexibility and that freedom and that liberty to drive forward and score a screamer, just like he did. So unbelievable performance from Rodri. But just edging him out for man of the match for me is Bernardo Silva. What a player. In the podcast that will be coming soon, you'll see Aviv and I pick a player that we want to speak about. Not necessarily based off a good performance, just a player that we want to speak about. And for me, it was Bernardo Silva. I could talk about him for hours and hours and hours. He was my man of the match. He got a goal, an assist, a pass to assist, which was a brilliant cross to John Stones, who headed it back for Haaland's first goal and City's third goal of the night. And Bernardo Silva was excellent. Initially, I was quite skeptical, to be honest. And what looked like in the first 20 minutes a heated, contested battle between him and Alphonso Davies ended up being a masterclass for Bernardo Silva. City seemed to really try and isolate Bernardo Silva one-on-one against Alphonso Davies. And I was quite, not concerned, but confused. I mean, Bernardo Silva isn't necessarily known for his one-on-one take-on ability. So maybe playing someone like Riyad Mahrez would have been more effective, or at least this is what I thought, or playing an overlapping fullback to support him instead of a Kanji, maybe a Kyle Walker. That's what I thought initially anyway. But how wrong was I proven? Bernardo Silva won the most duels in the game with 12. He also made 3 successful take-ons, which is the most in the game, meaning he was able to beat Alphonso Davies and get through. He made 6 touches in the opponent's box. He won the possession 6 times, which shows his defensive work rate, which has never really been in question, if we're being honest. He also tackled the ball 8 times, the most in the match, and made 3 chances, the most in the match. Bernardo Silva, at one point, was looked at one of the best players in the Premier League. I remember the start of the 21-2022 season. You know, the first half the season, it was like, who's going to be player of the season, him or Mohamed Salah? I really admire Bernardo Silva for, you know, his physicality and his physical presence on the pitch is probably not as strong as other players. You know, he's a bit shorter, he doesn't have the biggest strength, but he's so smart with how he plays. He's able to weave past players with ease, and he's not the quickest either, but he still is able to use quick touches and quick dribbles to get past players. There was a passage of play where he nutmegged Alphonso Davies, then Coman, I think, then Alphonso Davies again. I'm not too sure who they were, but he made 3 nutmegs in the one play. Alphonso Davies ended up winning the ball back off him, but Bernardo Silva won it back and cut it back for a really dangerous opportunity. So, excellent game, man of the match performance from him. And cheeky fun fact of the day, Bernardo Silva has more UCL knockout non-penalty goals than Kylian Mbappe since 2017-2018. How's that for a stat? Also, if we're talking about Manchester City, we have to talk about Eerling Haaland. He made a nice cross to Bernardo Silva for his headed goal, really put it on a plate for him. He also scored his goal for the night, which brings it up to 34 goals in 26 Champions League games in his career and 51 goal contributions for the season. Haaland also broke Van Nistelrooy and Mohamed Salah's tied joint record of most goals in all competitions in a season. Haaland has 45 goals for the season in all competitions, which is the most for any Premier League player in history. City can still play a minimum of 11 games. Who knows how many more Erling Haaland can score. He wasn't incredible on the night. I mean, he made a nice pass. He was imposing and threatening as he always is. He had a quiet first half, quiet first 60 minutes, to be honest. But he delivered when it matters, and of course, the headlines will be on Erling Haaland, who just continues to score in robotic fashion. For Bayern Munich, I want to talk about Upamecano and Musiala. I think they both had tough nights. A lot of the blame, a lot of the memes, a lot of the internet hate will be directed towards both of them. Maybe Upamecano in particular, who was at fault for the second goal. Jack Grealish pressed him very, very well. Upamecano lost the ball and it ended up in the back of his own net. After that, he also looked quite shaky, giving up the ball pretty much immediately off kickoff. And yeah, from that second goal, I don't remember exactly when it was, maybe the 60th or so minute, Upamecano really kind of lost his head and lost his focus. But for the first half, I actually thought he was okay. He made some recoveries. He made 6 out of 12 accurate long balls, and 8 passes into the final third. Those were for the night. I'm not too sure what they were like first half and second half, but I know for sure that the first half, he seemed to be making some nice, tough line-breaking passes, sending Bayern players through. He didn't look too bad. I just think that his confidence was really shaky once he gave away that mistake for the second goal. And it's so interesting to see what confidence can really do for a player. Jamal Musiala as well, the 20-year-old, will get some hate for the game. And he had a tough one. I can't lie. Every single time he had the ball or tried to turn, it seemed like one of Rodri, Stones, or Gundogan were immediately on him. It honestly seemed like he was kind of in the middle of a triangle of them. But they knew as soon as he got the ball to step up on him and be physical. Whilst he did have a tough night, I think it's quite astonishing, really. I think Musiala will only learn from games like this. Learn from games where he struggles a little bit more, plays against such a strong midfield, such a strong side, and he'll learn from it. And he should take pride in the fact that Man City and Pep Guardiola, one of the most genius football minds in history, looked at him and said, this guy's a threat, and pretty much man-marked him out of the game. But that's something that a 20-year-old who is nowhere near his peak and will continue to learn and to grow and develop, something that he should take pride in, I think. But again, hopefully it doesn't hit his confidence too much for the rest of the season. We'll talk about Sommer, who initially I thought was a little bit shaky. There are a couple high claims. I mean, Rodri's goal was a belter, but maybe if he's that little bit taller, he can make that save. But I'm not going to give that any credit those claims. I mean, I thought that initially, but I immediately changed my mind. Without Sommer in goal, it could have been 5, 6, or even 7 for Manchester City. He made some astonishing saves in the second half to really keep them in the leg. Unfortunately for him, Bayern Munich's defense just gave up too many opportunities and made it 3. Definitely Bayern's best player on the night. Not only did his shot stopping was very, very good, he also made 9 out of 13 accurate long balls and had an 87% passing accuracy. His 6 saves and his 5 saves inside the box, 3 of them being diving saves, really kept Bayern in the fixture. And he is someone from Bayern Munich's side that can really hold his head high for the rest of the season and the second leg. Now, let's talk about it. The title of this video, is it Manchester City's year to win the Champions League? That is a really big one. First Champions League in history. Eerling Haaland, I believe after the Leipzig demolition, was quoted as saying, Manchester City know how to win the Premier League. They didn't bring me in for that. They brought me to win the Champions League, something that they've never done before. And to be honest, when they play like that at the Etihad and really zip the ball about and look absolutely primed for a perfect game, can anyone get anywhere near them? I don't think so. But of course, that's not what football is about. It's not about playing perfect on the day. It's about adapting and adapting to positives and negatives. If they manage to keep their composure and win this tie as they should, they'll play the winner of Chelsea and Real Madrid. That fixture has yet to start. The first leg is tonight. But it'll be very, very interesting because Manchester City do have to battle on multiple fronts. They're still in the FA Cup. They still want to win the Premier League, and they've got that title race with Arsenal. And of course, win that lucrative Champions League. A treble is on the card for Pep Guardiola's side. And for me, I don't think I've ever seen, this is a big claim, but I don't think I've ever seen as complete a performance as I did last night in Manchester from the citizens. So for me, they are as good as anyone in Europe. They're quite possibly the best team in the world, and they could very, very, very realistically win their first Champions League this season. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. Let me know, will Manchester City win the Champions League? Will they win the treble? Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you watch this video with other videos. Like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you guys so much. Don't go changing.